Hi guys, welcome to my channel. This is Anne Desdemonia. Today's video is going to be about what kinds of questions to ask your doctor and when exactly do you ask these questions. So without ado, we're just gonna jump right ahead into the video. But before we do that, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so by clicking on that red button on the right hand side of your computer screen, and also by clicking that bell button that tells you every time I post a video on YouTube. And while you're at it, why don't you give me a thumbs up? So let's dive in. So I have this book, and I've had it now for about 4 years, so since 2014, and I call this my breast book. And the reason why I call it my breast book is because I've had this book for 4 years now, and everything that I had to go through for my breast is in this book. So from my PT to my chiropractor to all the weight loss journeys that I started and I had to stop, I documented them in here and the reasons why I stopped. So I'm going to be using this book as a reference guide, and hopefully you do learn one or two things from this video that you could also use for your own approval process. So like I told you guys, I went through the insurance route. So having my insurance pay for my breast reduction. But then keep in mind that most people usually pay for this out of pocket. And this kind of surgery is a very expensive surgery. But then, when your health is on the line, there's just no amount of money that's worth your health. So some people actually go ahead and pay for this surgery. Surgery is a very huge and drastic change, and so once you have resulted down to that line, you really want to be careful as to what kind of doctor you choose to do this kind of surgery. You want to ask them about pictures about the jobs that they have done in the past. You want to see it. You want a doctor that when you walk into their office, they're not ashamed of touching your boob. They're not ashamed of lifting it up, touching your scars, showing some concern. You want that kind of doctor because at the end of the day, they resonate with your pain. They know exactly what you're going through and they sympathize with you. So that's exactly what I was looking for, and I absolutely 100% got that in my own doctor. So my first question when I had made my decision, I had to make sure that the doctor understood who I was. So I went ahead looking for an appropriate doctor. So I consulted with a doctor that worked on some of my family members. I also looked into the referral that my doctor personally gave to me, and I also went ahead and I looked on the internet. I googled some doctors around the area to read some reviews, and that's how I narrowed my own doctor or my own breast reduction surgeon. The reason I did that was because if you shop around for everything from your clothes to all the items in your house, so why can't you shop around for a doctor? Keep in mind that these doctors are human just like us. The only difference is they went to medical school. And because they went to medical school, it doesn't mean that they know everything. They don't. So you can't go under the assumption that because they're a doctor, they must be good at what they do. There's some doctors that are actually practicing when they should not be practicing. There's some doctors that are suspended. There's some doctors that are not even good at what they do. So you go on the internet and you find really bad reviews about certain surgeons. And just imagine you're paying $10,000 for a breast reduction surgery and you're not satisfied with the job. It's definitely not funny, but it happens. And so you want to be able to eliminate all of these things from the very, very beginning. So when I went ahead and I did that, unfortunately, my own doctor that I finally picked, she's not on the internet. She never had reviews. In fact, she was the only one that reviewed herself. So how did I end up choosing her? I researched the breast reduction doctors in my area through Google Two, I also looked into the referrals that came in from, you know, my family members that have gone through the same process. I looked into their doctors. And three, I also looked into the referral that was given to me from my own personal doctor who has been through this process with me from the very first day. So I really took into consideration his, because one, he always referred all of his patients to this particular surgeon that is my surgeon now, and so far he never really heard any negative comments about her. Secondly, that I went in for a doctor's appointment and I saw one of her patients she recently worked on, and they just couldn't stop talking about her, and this kind of, you know, put in some positive bells in my head. And three, when I walked into her office, we just had this kind of connection. Like, she answered my questions very directly. She was very honest about it. She was extremely open. She was patient, and she was very understanding. The questions that I had in mind, it's like she knew already what questions I was coming into the room with, and she literally just addressed them right heads on. I really love that about doctors, when they're able to give you the direct facts without sugarcoating it. And yeah, so we really kicked it off at a very good note. So once I had my first doctor's meeting with her, or consultation with her, I then decided to go through the process with her. So because I'm going through the process with my insurance, this is where it's now different between those who go through the insurance route and those who pay for it out of pocket. So if you're paying for this process out of pocket, guess what? You can make this decision whenever you want to. But then when you're going through the insurance route, you have to decide on what doctor before your approval process, because they put the application together for your insurance company. You can't just say, oh, you know what? I can't be with this doctor anymore. She doesn't know who I am, or he doesn't know who I am, so I'm just going to go to this doctor that my aunt used 10 years ago. No, you can't, because the insurance knows they're using Dr. X, and so you can't wake up and say you want Dr. A. So it doesn't work that way. So you have to be absolutely sure before you submit your documents. So once we submitted my documents and I got approved, they called me right away. And we set up a surgery date. We also set up our very final doctor's visit date, and which is actually coming up. And I was very excited about that. So now, on that very final doctor's visit date, what kinds of questions should you ask? One, ask things that you are very passionate about. I know women are so passionate about, the scarring. So if that's something that you're into, that should be something you bring up from the very beginning. I know some doctors have their own regimens for healing scars and keloiding. So ask your doctor, do they have products like this that you can use? Unfortunately, my doctor didn't have that, but then she did recommend products over the counter I could find at any pharmacy, and that's exactly what I'm gonna do. And I also know some oils personally that I'm definitely going to be incorporating into my regimen, just so I reduce the scarring. Secondly, you want to know if you're going to be spending the night in the hospital or you're not going to be spending the night in the hospital. So you make the proper accommodations. You need to know if you're going to be eating and when exactly to stop eating the day of your surgery. So are you going to stop at 9 p.m., 6 p.m. or midnight the day before your surgery? So these are all important information. You also want to know what kinds of meds you're going to be under. So you need to know what kinds of anesthesia is going to be used on your body, and after anesthesia, what kinds of pain meds are they going to give you to relieve your pain? Are they going to be giving you Percocet? Are they going to be giving you Tylenol? So there's a huge difference between these medications. And one important thing about pain meds is the fact that a huge side effect from pain meds is constipation. So you also want to be able to handle that. Personally, I get so constipated without pain meds. I actually need help going to the bathroom. I discussed that with my doctor, and I have to actually start, my Miralax 2-3 days ahead of my surgery, just so I'm comfortable when they start giving me the pain meds. I also talked about the type of meds that they're giving me, so I'm not gonna have like the Percocet that just knocks you out completely. I'm very fine with Tylenol. I have a very high pain tolerance and I don't want to be knocked out. So all of this is patient preference. So you should definitely talk about the type of meds they're going to be giving you, so that your process is not as excruciating as it is, because just the knife touching your body is something you're going to remember for the rest of your life, and you don't want to make the process so uncomfortable. You also want to be able to communicate properly with your family members, because if you're going to be spending the night, they need to make the proper accommodations. If you're not spending the night, then they need to make the same proper accommodations. If they're going to be driving you from the hospital, if someone's going to be waiting for you at the hospital, like all these things, you need to be able to make proper accommodations. Another thing you also want to address is about fluid drainage. For fluid drainage, I saw that, and I also read online, and I saw most people on YouTube, some of their surgeons gave them put tubes in their boobs, and the tubes that had bags that were hanging outside, and that was just collecting the extra fluid that was in their breast. And I was really worried about that, not only because it was uncomfortable, but also because I had to make the proper accommodations. Again, these things they require changing, so changing every 3 hours or 6 hours, and when you're knocked out, it means a family member has to do that. So again, it narrows down to communication. Luckily for me, my doctor doesn't she doesn't do that, so she does a good enough job in the surgical room that you don't need fluid drainage at the end. So I was very excited about that. You should also address healing. So when I was reading about this healing process, I realized that the healing process just depends on the surgeon, because it's very different. Some people took 3 days, some people took 5 weeks. So it's all about you and how you heal, and also about how the surgeon performs. So it varies, but at the end of the day, it should be a very important topic, because if you're working, you need to know what kinds of things you can or cannot do while at work. If you need to take off completely from work for 5 weeks, that's going to affect your finances. So you need to make proper accommodations again. So these are important topics for you to really, really, really discuss with your doctor at the end of the day, at that very last visit. So I did talk to my own doctor, and she told me that 2 weeks was enough for me. So 2 weeks was enough for me, but it didn't mean that I had to go lifting 100 pounds. She was like 10 to 20 pounds should be the maximum I lift, because you don't want to open those scars again. It just makes the scarring worse. So be obedient and just follow the doctor's directions. If you don't want scars, just obey. That's all you have to do. Obey what they say. Sexuality. So I know some women are very sensitive about this whole surgery, because they don't know if they're gonna have some sensitivity back once they have the surgery, or if the sensitivity in their nipple area is going to be gone forever. Well, good news, you're still gonna have sensitivity. It now varies from woman to woman, and it also varies as to how much time. From what I read, some women actually regained their sensitivity instantly after the surgery, and some other women, it took weeks and it took years for them to regain it. But at the end of the day, you will get it back. So it's not gone forever. When it comes to breastfeeding, you should still be able to breastfeed. But one question that she asked me was my bra size. What size did I want to go down to? So this is something that you should be well prepared ahead of time. So you should do your research. Do you want to be a D cup, a C cup, a B cup, or is there an A cup? I think so. I don't know. But you need to know if that's what you want. They can only go down cup sizes. They can't go down, the waist area, the waist area. So you need to know what cup size you want. And also keep in mind that the lower the go, the more damaging they do to your boobs and the less sensitivity you receive. So if you're going to be a B cup, it's going to be so hard for them to, you know, build back that boob to like a very normal size boob that people will not know that it went through surgery, and you might lose sensitivity and breastfeeding abilities. So keep that in mind as well. If you want to do this when you're older, hey, go right ahead. You're not giving birth anytime soon. But if you're younger like me and you're foreseeing having kids down the lane, then that's something you should put into consideration. But regardless, even if you're still a D cup, guess what? From moving from a 40 double G to a D, I would take it any day just to stop this pain. So I'm still very grateful. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please go ahead, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. If you have any questions or comments or any feedback you would want to send my way, please do not forget to comment down below. I really love to start reading some comments. Thank you very much again, and I'll talk to you soon.